Here were the projections from last season. Some of them, you see they're 8-4 in the regular season. Our projection had them at 7-5. My prediction had them at 7-5. The Clemson game flipping, I think that's really kind of what put them up to 8-4. That was a big win for them. The FBI projection was not so high. I mean, had them right at 6-6. The over/under was at 6. So really, the FBI, Vegas, they kind of put this team at about 6-6. Again, my prediction, the projections we did, had them closer to 7-5. But they beat all of that by going 8-4. Really good year for South Carolina. And of course, the big wins over Tennessee and Clemson really just made it feel like a special season. But let's look ahead now to 2023. Again, here's the schedule. This is the scale that we'll be using. You can see the games that are in red or green. Those are games that are pretty much guaranteed wins. Games where the spreads will be 20 or more points, 20-29, 71-80. Those games are going to be games that are 10-19 points, that spread. 30-39, 61-70. Those are games where I think the spread will be 6, 7, 8, 9 points, kind of in that range. And then if it's a 50-50 game, the spread's less than a touchdown, 5 or less, those games are going to stay in the white. So we'll start with the easy wins for South Carolina. I think you got a couple of those, Furman and Jacksonville State. Jacksonville State's not a bad FCS team. But still, there's really no reason for South Carolina to lose either one of these games. Those are pretty much considered guaranteed wins. And again, they're going to go in the green. And then we go to the blue. I think there's one game here where South Carolina will clearly be a double-digit favorite. That's Vanderbilt at home. They will probably be favored by 17 or 18 points in this game. Vandy, they're starting to make some strides. I don't think that this is the Vanderbilt that we have been used to. Of course, they won a couple of big games last year. But playing at home, just looking at where the two teams are right now, I still think South Carolina will be favored by a good bit in that one. So how about the games where they're favored by around a touchdown? That's going to be Mississippi State, Florida, Missouri, Kentucky. I do think the Gamecocks will be favored in all 4 of these games, but not by a ton. Again, Mississippi State, Florida, Kentucky at home. South Carolina should be a top 25 preseason team. Those 3 teams probably will not. I could see really all 3 of those teams potentially making it into the top 25, but I think preseason they're probably just outside of that. And again, home field advantage for South Carolina. That's why I put these games in the purple. Missouri on the road could be a little tricky. I think they'll be favored by 6 or 7 in that one. And so those are the games that definitely not guaranteed wins, but games where we just know that South Carolina will be favored. Doesn't mean they're going to win all 4 of these games, but they will be the favorite going into these 4 games. I feel pretty confident in that. How about the games where they'll be underdogs? We'll start with Georgia. I think they will be double-digit underdogs in this game. Georgia's just on another level right now. It's on the road. I just don't see that spread being less than 10 points. It will probably be at least 14, maybe closer to 17 or 18. But yes, Georgia definitely the clear favorite there, and it would be a big shock if South Carolina were to go on the road into Athens and beat Georgia. Don't really see that one happening. And then I think Tennessee, look, I know South Carolina beat them last year, but I think that Tennessee will be favored this year by 6 or 7 points. It's on the road this time for South Carolina. Tennessee is figures to be a top 15 team. South Carolina maybe more in that 15 to 25 range. If this was a home game, maybe we would put it as 50-50. But playing on the road at Tennessee in Knoxville, that is why this one's in the yellow. Again, I think Tennessee will be favored by about 6. So Georgia, Tennessee, those are the games where I think South Carolina will be an underdog. And then that leaves North Carolina, Texas A&M, and Clemson. These are your 50-50 games. If you're going to have a great season, if you're South Carolina, you need to win these 50-50 games. They will be favored more than likely against North Carolina, but that'll be a challenge. I think they'll only be favored by 3 or 4. Texas A&M, because it's on the road, I don't expect them to be a big favorite in that game, but maybe they're favored by a field goal. And Clemson, probably still leaning towards Clemson being favored in that one, but it's at home for South Carolina, so you never know. Could be a pick'em, could be South Carolina as the favorite. That's one that one's really 50-50 for me. So you look at these 3 games, those are your 50-50 games, and when we average all this out, we count the blue and the green games as wins. The one game in the orange, Georgia, that'll be counted as a loss. Then we average everything else out, and you get a projection of 7-5. And I'll tell you what, the number, I believe, was 7.45, so it was very close to getting rounded up to 8-4. But that is the projection here. 7-5 for South Carolina. You look at, North Carolina, Texas A&M, Clemson, Tennessee. If they split those games, and the numbers would actually have them a little under 50% in those games because Tennessee, they're going to be underdogs. But you look at those 4 games, they could lose a couple there. Mississippi State, Florida, Missouri, Kentucky, if they lose a couple there. Also add the loss to Georgia. You can see how they could get to 7-5. I feel like 8-4 probably would have been a more fair projection for them. But like I said, it was right on that line. And the numbers are what they are. We plug them in. We use them for this projection. And for South Carolina, the numbers came out to be 7-5 in 2023.